Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Adventures in Dolls, the United Federation of Doll Clubs YouTube channel. Today, our program is presented by one of the UFDC board members and a very active member in UFDC. Her name is Donnell Dennery. She's presenting Käthe Kruse, or Käthe Rare Doll Room. Proves to be a very interesting program. Before we watch it, I'd like to remind you, if you have any friends or know anybody that needs to join UFDC, you might ask them to join you in watching our programs. If you have any comments, if you would like to give a program, if you would like to see a program, you might leave your comments in the comment section. We always love to hear from you. And thank you to all of you who have been supporting our channel. We really, really appreciate it, and we appreciate you. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our channel. Remember, subscribing, there's no fee involved. It just boosts our rating with YouTube. So if you like and subscribe, you won't miss your next adventure in dolls.
I'd like to thank Carol Cameron and Debbie Kufel, whose collections inspired me to collect dollhouses and dollhouse dolls. The doll artist we know as Käthe Kruse was born September 17, 1883 in Breslau, Germany. She was born Katharina Simon, the child of unmarried parents. Her mother supported them by sewing jobs. As a child, she didn't like dolls and referred to them as lifeless objects. Her aunt and uncle took her to the theater during her adolescence, which sparked her interest in becoming an actress. Immediately after finishing school, she began acting lessons at age 16. She took the stage name of Hedda Simone, and by 17 she was employed by the Lessig Theater in Berlin, Germany, for 250 marks a month, a lot of money at that time. Although admired as an actress, she was disturbed by the envy, fighting for roles, and nastiness she saw behind the scenes. This caused her to feel restless and lonely. At this time she met Max Kruse, who was 30 years her senior. He was one of Berlin's best-known personalities as a sculptor and author. They both were part of the Berlin art community and respected art. They found a deep personal affection for one another. Käthe explained she would like to have children, but not get married. 2 daughters followed, Maria and Sophie. In 1909, when their 3rd child died in childbirth, they decided, 7 years after they had met, to get married. Their marriage produced 7 children, many with artistic talents. Watching her mom care for her younger sister, Käthe's 3-year-old daughter asked for a child to be like her mom. Max Kruse found the porcelain-headed dolls of the time to be cold and fragile, not suitable play toys. He challenged his wife to make a doll. Käthe made her first doll in 1906 for her daughters. A knotted towel was the first body filled with sand. The head was a potato tied to the longer side of the towel, with eyes, mouth, and nostrils drawn on using burned matches. She described this in a 1-page article she wrote for the November 1912 Ladies' Home Journal titled The Wonderful Kruse Baby Dolls, the story of the origins of the famous German dolls, as told by their originator, Frau Käthe Kruse. There were multiple iterations of the early dolls made exclusively for her daughters between 1906 and 1910. In 1910, she was surprised to be invited to display her dolls in an exhibition called Homemade Toys for the Tietz department store in Berlin. Käthe felt the noses on her dolls were not good enough to display. She asked her husband to form a head with a proper nose, ears, and mouth. This display started Käthe's professional life as a doll artist and was the beginning of the doll known as Doll 1. Making her dolls from her Berlin apartment, Doll 1 received a gold medal at an international exhibition in Florence. 150 dolls were ordered by FAO Schwarz in America to be delivered by November 8, 1911. Employing 5 women and still working from her apartment living room, the order was delivered on time. Another order for 500 dolls quickly followed from FAO Schwarz, and Käthe knew she couldn't produce this many dolls in her living room. With this rising demand, a contract was signed with Käthe Reinhardt on December 29, 1910. Käthe found these dolls to be horrible and not pretty enough. She called the clumsy body a flounder look. The problems couldn't be solved, and after only a few months of production in early 1911, Käthe refunded the money to Käthe Reinhardt and received her patterns and forms back. This led to her opening her own factory in Bad Kösen, where she could control her production. Coleman's encyclopedia indicates that FAO Schwarz sold Käthe Kruse dolls for $10 undressed and $13.50 to $16.50 dressed in 1913. In 2022 dollars, that equates to $281 to $464, quite a hefty sum. When many collectors think of this artist, they think of the dolls you see here. From the immensely popular Doll 1 through Doll 8, these dolls spanned a 56-year time frame and were produced from 1910 to 1966. Shown here is a sampling of these dolls. But now let's examine the focus of this presentation, doll room dolls. Wilhelm II, the last German emperor who reigned for a 30-year period from 1888 to 1918, was a militant emperor which created a patriotic period in Germany. This led to a demand for soldier dolls by specialized dealers. In 1914, people demanded Käthe make uniforms for her dolls. Doll 1 was sold with military uniforms as shown here. As a young businesswoman, looking at the stiff tin soldiers most children played with, Käthe got the idea to make fully articulated soldier dolls that could simulate the positions of a real soldier. 1914 was an important year for Käthe, as it was the year that she and Max patented a wireframe body armature which allowed her soldiers to have realistic positionings. This wire armature played an important role in being the forerunner for subsequent dolls by Käthe, which used similar wire structures. Her small soldiers were 11 centimeters, approximately 4 inches tall, and were described as Potsdam soldiers. Only a few of these dolls were brought to the market. Using some of the many family busts, mostly created by Max, Käthe made small composition heads and in 1915 designed detailed military uniforms of soldiers from the nations involved in the war: Germany, Austria, Serbia, Russia, Belgium, France, and England. An officer, who was a family friend, provided a critical eye for the authenticity of the uniforms. She advertised these soldiers in newspapers and created a prisoner of war camp at the Berlin Arts and Crafts Center. Now let's examine the birth of the doll room dolls, better known as dollhouse dolls. In 1916, Käthe showed her newly invented wire armature could be used in other ways. Called doll room dolls, 2 dollhouse families were offered, and a lot of other figures in dollhouse size also. Shown here is the Biedermeier family. Käthe felt that dollhouse dolls had been largely neglected by the industry. The ones available she felt were out of proportion, with bodies that were too big, legs that were too short, and stump-like arms. She also thought their clothes were much too formal and made of materials which were too thick. Ever an entrepreneur, she saw a market for these dolls. Käthe modified her wire structure for the soldiers for the dollhouse dolls. She added individually formed fingers which moved independently and could hold objects, and wound cloth around the innermost wire structures, then circled the cloth with fine wire to add additional body shape, softness, and pliability. Seen here is the cover and the pages of the only known catalog showing her dollhouse dolls. Käthe gave these dolls the series numbers 4 and 5. Being entirely made by hand, it took a long time to make these dolls, thus making them very expensive, with not many being made. They were discontinued in 1925, and the series numbers were reused for later dolls. Once again, Käthe used her husband's family sculptures as her inspiration for many of the composition heads she sculpted for her dollhouse dolls. The dolls were roughly 1/10 scale and ranged in size from 14 centimeters to 17 centimeters, approximately 5.5 inches to 7.5 inches, and 11 centimeters, approximately 4 inches for the children, the latter being a similar size to the Potsdam soldiers. They are beautifully in proportion, with fabric scaled to the size of the doll. As you can see in these photos, her dolls exhibited lifelike poses. Let's examine some of these dolls a little more closely. These two gentlemen are just over 7 inches tall. They're dressed in silk and cotton. The quality and construction of the outfits is excellent. It's easy to see how Käthe used busts of her family members for inspiration for sculpting the composition heads. The chap on the left looks a lot like her husband. Here you can easily see the construction of the wired fingers which were wrapped in flesh-colored thread. These men's shoes appear to be made of composition to simulate leather. No detail is spared, as you can just see on the right feet the fabric strap which runs from the pants to underneath the shoes. The lady's outerwear is silk. The lady on the left wears a woven straw bonnet with silk ties. The one lady has silk underwear, unfortunately very soiled. Delicate lace edges the slip and panties. Like the gentleman, her shoes appear to be made of some sort of composition, with the one difference being small heels. The second lady's undies are of fine cotton, again with lace edging. Her shoes are embroidered on. Some of the dollhouse dolls do have removable shoes. Some of the dollhouse dolls had removable clothing. The bodies were covered in white or flesh-colored stockinette. The dolls depicted many family members and domestic help. Lydia Richter documented that Käthe used some of her dollhouse dolls to depict fairy tale characters. Grimm's fairy tale characters, Hansel and Gretel, were specifically mentioned. She also experimented with making animals with wire armatures. Hansel and Gretel weren't the only fairy tale characters that Käthe created. A very rare box containing over 20 dollhouse dolls made by Käthe Kruse depicts the shock-headed Peter fairy tale. The box and artwork are by the artist Erika von Kager, who is known for her illustrations. She and Käthe were contemporaries in the art scene and likely knew each other. Erika made and furnished the box as a gift to her godsons, Hans and Peter Bodmer. Peter treasured and kept his childhood toy. He married his wife Mary Ann, who over time became a renowned doll collector. Peter died in 1973 and Mary Ann died in 1986 before she could establish her planned doll museum. Her estate of dolls was sold by Sotheby's in London in November 1989. Dorothy Dixon, a respected doll collector from America, purchased the box. As mentioned earlier, wire armatures were first used in 1914 for the 4-inch soldier dolls, then used for the dollhouse dolls. The future scope, scale, and use of wire armatures in Käthe's doll making is quite extraordinary. It's interesting to note that the wire armatures were used multiple times during Käthe's long career. Over the years, doll making continued to be a family affair, with several of her children helping with production. Daughter Sophie was primarily responsible for the show window figures, which were made for a 30-year period. The wire armatures, which were used for child-sized store window dolls, evolved into ball-jointed metal skeletons for adult size with the help of a plumber. It took over 5 years of development time from child size to adult size. Sophie sculpted the heads, using her younger siblings as models for the first child-sized dolls. Heads were interchangeable. Wigs were hand-knotted human hair wigs. These human-sized dolls were similar to store mannequins, but their design was more refined and lifelike. I think you'll agree these dolls were lifelike when you examine the picture on the right of Sophie sitting and chatting with a store window doll. Store window dolls could be a whole other program. While she's most known for her earlier dolls, such as doll 1 through 8 as shown at the beginning of this program, many other popular models existed. Along with being the smallest and the largest of the dolls made by Käthe, the doll room-sized dollhouse dolls and the adult-sized store window dolls are among the rarest. Her company is one of the few early 20th century doll companies which still exist today. The artist's ability to gauge the market and respond to it is illustrated by the evolution from cloth dolls to celluloid to hard plastic to the vinyl used today. Käthe Kruse died at the age of 84 in 1968. The mark she made on the doll world is indelible. Her innovation, attention to detail, focus on hand workmanship, and insistence on the highest quality possible are all reasons her dolls are still beloved today. I hope you've enjoyed this program and learned something about these little-known dolls. This program would not have been possible without the research and pictures from the sources listed here. I'd like to thank Carol Cameron for pointing me in the direction of many of these books which contained information about these rare dolls.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed the program today. We'd like to extend a special thank you to Donnell Dennery. She is a board member at UFDC and does so many things for all of us to make everything so much nicer. So we appreciate her and want to thank her for her contribution. If you are not a member of UFDC, but would like to be, you need to click on the link at the bottom of the page. It'll take you directly to our website where you can find membership and fill out the form. And when you do that, be sure you tell them Karen sent you.